With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Justin McBride to get today's session started.
All right, well, thanks, Justin. That was a good introduction. As he said, this is our first time, so give us some slack to work with here today if we have any issues. I don't anticipate any, but you never know, I guess. As Justin said, today we're going to be working with Civil 3D, particularly the 2016 version. I know if you're with NRCS that they're still on 2014, and I think maybe you'll switch to 2016 maybe this year sometime. There's not a whole lot of differences. There's a couple things here and there, but the main thing is most of these steps, if you have the step-by-step guide sheet Justin emailed you all, there is a command to type in the command line instead of pushing the buttons. Also, when I go through this, when I push on a button or something, you'll see in the command line that it'll come up with the command to enter. So if you're looking at this webinar in the future sometime, you can see that particular command and use it if you're not able to find the button on your version of CAD. So again, we're using Civil 3D. I need to make a claim right now. I am not a Civil 3D expert. I know enough to get the job done, and it may not be the most efficient way, but it will work. So hopefully after this is over today, we can open it up to some conversation with you all. If there are any other methods or ways to do the processes I'm doing, then certainly share them with us. That would be good. The other thing is, as he said, this isn't necessarily the first step in doing a CAD surface. You need to have basic CAD skills. So you should be able to know how to draw polylines and how to create boxes and do fillets and certain things like that. We may do a webinar on that sometime in the future, but you should, at a minimum, before you build surfaces, know how to do some certain basic CAD skills. The files we're using today, again, Justin sent out on an email, and if you don't have access to them, we can also put them on the FTP site, so we can get these files to you. If, for instance, you're viewing this webinar sometime in the future, not live, just send an email to one of us and we can get those files to you if you'd like to use them. Hopefully this webinar will be followed in the next couple months with another webinar, and ideally we want to do this following a grass waterway design. So for instance, we'll build a surface today. On the next webinar we may use alignments and create profiles and then do corridors and final designs and things like that. So that's the hope, is to be able to do a grass waterway design from start to finish once this series of webinars is complete, and in the future we may do pond design or different type of designs as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully all of you can see my screen right now. I should have AutoCAD opened up, and I don't have any files opened yet. So basically I'm going to start from the very beginning. This is assuming that you've already done a topographic survey with a GPS machine or a total station, and you have uploaded the points from your data collector into your computer. Okay, so that's all an assumption that you should be able to do that at this point. Once those are done, I'm going to go ahead and open up my survey file, or open up my CAD drawing, and then I'll open the points as well. So hopefully I can get her. There we go. For this presentation, I'm going to use a white back screen in the model space just because it's a little easier to see on everyone's screen. Your CAD that you're using on your computer may have a black screen, that's fine. I just thought that a white screen may be easier to see some of this stuff inside the model space. So I've opened up my, my grass waterway template, and now I'm going to insert my points. To do that, you go up to the Home tab, and there's a button here that says Import Survey Data. Go ahead and click on that, and you should get a dialog box that pops up. I hope, although I'm not seeing it. I wonder what's going on here. There, popped up on my other screen. Okay, I'll drag it over. Okay, so this is what pops up after you hit that button. Again, if you don't have the buttons or you can't find the buttons because you're in the previous version, down here at the bottom, this is the command to type in to the command line if you want to get this dialog box popping up. Okay, So the next thing to do is create a new survey database. And you don't necessarily have to do this. You can have all your surveys that you've done on all your different producers all in the same database. It's an easy way to keep things separated for each producer or each project you're working on. You want to have only those survey files located in that database, just so it's an easy way to find certain surveys for certain projects. So for this one, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call this, I already did an example, I'll just call this example 2 database. And typically you would call this your producer's name with this project, so it could be Joe Smith, a dry stack, or a grass waterway, whatever you're doing. Click OK, and you'll see up there it just created that database, called it example 2. I'm going to go down and hit next, and then I want to find the survey file, and to do this, most of the data collectors upload them into a CSV file. So there's multiple different types I could pick, but for that type of file we want to pick a point file, and on the right here there's a plus button where I'm actually going to find the file itself. So I'll hit the plus button, and right there's my webinar survey data. I'm going to hit open, and then I have to specify the point file format. Most people that are using the Trimble systems, their points are going to be uploaded in a PE or PNEZD, which stands for point number, the northern value, the eastern value, the elevation value, and then the description. So I'm going to select that one because that's what these points are in. And down here below that, it'll give a preview of what those points will be imported will look like. So for instance, if I would have picked, let's say, if I would have picked PENZD, then it would have switched to easting and northing, and then I would have to know that this is not an easting value, this is a northing value based on experience. And I can go down here and change it to what it's supposed to be. So I'm going to click that one, and I'm going to click next, hit next again, and on this screen you just want to make sure that you click the insert survey points. If you don't have this check marked, then you will have to manually insert the points after they were inserted into the database. But if it's already check marked, then you can hit finish and the points will automatically be loaded into the file. So I'm going to make sure that's check marked and hit finish. And there are my points that just popped up. Hold on one second here. Okay. All right. So those are my points file that just popped up. What I want to do next, in the next step, is go over to the prospector pane and right-click on the points group. So for instance, right now I'm on the survey pane here on the left. Up at the top is the prospector tab. And I want to go over there to points group, and I want to right-click the whole points group file, and I want to hit update. I'm doing this because when you insert points, they don't automatically update all the points group that will include those points. For instance, you'll have these sort of yellow exclamation points saying that they need to be updated. So to do that, I'm just going to right-click the points group and hit update. And you can see they just updated. Okay. And I've already got a points group created called topo. These are the points group that I'm going to be using to create a surface. And the only difference between this points group and all the points is that they exclude the points that will not be included in building the surface. So they'll exclude things like benchmarks and things like offsets and top of structure marks, things that don't need to be included in the ground elevation services are excluded from this points group. So I already have this pre-made in my file. But the one thing I want to do is to make sure all the ground shots that I took are included in this group, just to double check. So to do that, I right-clicked on the topo points group, and I went down to edit points, and I'll have this big dialog that opens up, and these are all the points that are included in this points file. Okay, so I just want to go down briefly and make sure that I have all the points that I should or should not have in here. Okay, and I do know that I have them all. However, I also know that there is a point that I would like to exclude that is in this group, and that is point number 1955. Now, I know this because when I did the survey, it was a point that was not a good shot, or I shouldn't say good shot. It was not a true ground elevation shot. So if I scroll down, wherever, somewhere here it is. Okay, right there it is, point 1955. Okay, that point is in there and it should not be in there. Even though it says ground shot, I know that that point should not be in there. So I'm going to get out of this dialog, hit the check mark. I'm going to right click on the topo points group as well, go to properties. And under the properties, I want to go to the Exclude tab. And there's a number of ways I can exclude this point. The way I'm going to do is I'm going to check mark this box that says with numbers matching, and I could either type in the number 1955 and it would work, or if you have multiple points to do, you could just push the button selection set in drawing, and it'll take me into the drawing itself, and I can zoom into the point that I want to exclude. And that point 1955 is right here by the culvert. Okay, so I'm going to select that point and right click or push enter. And you can see that 1955 was populated again up there. Okay, so I want to hit OK. And again, go back to the topo points group, right, go to edit points and make sure that that point was excluded like it was supposed to. So if I scroll down, you can see there's point 1954, and then it goes to 1956. So 1955 is no longer in that group. And that is all it takes to insert your survey into the database. An important point to remember is I did not delete the point 1955. It is still in the all points file. So if I go to all my points, go to edit points, I can still find point 1955 up here. It's just not in the points group that I'm going to be using to create the surface. So that's an important fact to remember. And the other thing about these points group is that I have created a points group called No Display. And basically how I did that is I created a brand new points group, and I just didn't include any of the points. So this can be displayed if I go to points group properties, and you'll get this points group dialog. This dialog explains which points group supersedes the next one. The points group on top is the one that is always displayed in the model space, and then all the rest are just waiting in queue until you want to display them. If I select the No Display points group and I move it to the top and hit OK, then that points group takes priority of what's displayed. So for instance, if I hit apply here, I'm going to move this over and hit apply and hit OK, then all my points disappeared. They're still here physically, it's just that that points group took priority over all the rest, and that's what's displayed. And I could do the same thing if I only wanted the topo points. I could select the topo points, move them to the top, and only the topo points that I want to use will be included in this group. Okay. I could also do this if I wanted to draw a polyline over all the centerline points. You can see here there's a lot of points in this file. It'll be kind of hard to select all the centerline points to draw a polyline through with all this other mess around here. So to make it a little bit easier, you can create a new points group by right-clicking the points group name and then selecting New. And I can name this, and I want to name this centerline, or I'll just call it CL. And you can change the point style and the points label style, but I'm not going to do that for now. I'm going to leave it as is. Go over to the Include tab, and again, it's got the same kind of dialog as the Exclude, but instead of doing the numbers with matching, I just want to check mark the ones with raw description matching. And I'm going to type in CL and then a star. That star is important because if, for instance, I would just type in CL, then it would only include the points that have the CL in description. If they have anything else in description, those points would be excluded. The star basically says, okay, I'm going to include any of the points that have CL and then anything after it, okay? So you almost always want to use a star unless there's a specific point that you know you want to get to. So for this case, I could do either or because all my center line shots are called CL, but for instance, if I had a center line shot that said center line bottom of goalie or top of tile ground shot center line, all those points would be included since I added the star to the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit CL and hit OK. And it just created the CL points group over here. And I want to make sure that it only included the points group that I wanted. So if I go to properties of it, or not, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Right-click, Edit Points List. And here in this description, I can see all the raw descriptions that say CL are the only ones that are included. I don't have any other ground shots or anything else associated with it. So I want to display only my centerline shots. I can right-click the points group, hit Properties, and select the CL points and hit up. It's already at the top, but it didn't take away these other points. Why did it do that? Well, I created a new group called No Display, but unfortunately this takes priority. And just like I said, all the CL points are displayed as well as the topo. Okay, so if I want only the CL points, I'm going to move the No Display to the top and then the CL points to the top. And then now only the centerline points will be displayed, because after the centerline points are displayed, it'll go down and look and say, okay, No Display is next, and then all the points that aren't the centerline will be displayed. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but I'll just hit OK and I'll show you. Right there you have the centerline shots. And this is equally good if you have tile line shots that you want to track. You can do that as well. So that's how you manage your points group. I think that was all under step 2 of the step-by-step instructions. If you're following along, you can try to do this as well. I should probably go back and re-hit that again because I don't know if I was very clear. But what I did is I created a points group that only included the CL points, and then I made sure the No Display was just under the CL. Again, it looks at the first points groups from the top to the bottom and says, okay, this has priority show 1, these points will always be shown. Then the No Display has priority number 2, those points will be the next one to be shown after the first points. And then since that excludes all of them, everything underneath of it will be excluded. Now if I, for instance, went to the properties and I moved the all points file to the top, then if I hit apply or OK, then all the points just went back on the screen. So now it's displaying the CL points, all the points, and then it's saying No Display, but it doesn't do anything because all the points are already displayed. So just keep that in mind. If you have a No Display that you have to keep moving up to the top or just under the file that you want to be shown. So again, I'm going to move No Display to the top and then put the CL in front of it if I only want the centerline shots. Okay? And you can follow the same process if you have certain points in the centerline shot that you don't want to be included. You can follow the same process I showed before in the steps that you could exclude them. For instance, if I right-click the CL points group and I went to Properties and I go over to the Exclude tab and I happen to know that there's certain CL numbers that I don't want to include, I can check mark this box like last time and I can select the selection and drawing set and physically pick the points that I don't want to include. And if I hit OK, I have to update, I believe. Okay. I think it's because they're on the Include tab, it's not wanting to show. Let me just look here. Maybe I didn't check mark something. Like I said, there may be some first issues with these first few webinars. Okay. let's do this. I'm sorry, I'm not kind of talking, I'm just kind of figuring out why this isn't excluding the points I want it to exclude. There we go. There we go. Just had to redraw, which is another key point. If you have these issues where things should be working, for instance, those points should have disappeared the first time. What I should have done instead of trying to redo it is I should have typed in REA and hit enter. And what that is a redraw command that basically goes through all the things in the model space and redraws them how they should be ordered. Okay, so that's an important command to remember is REA if you're having issues where things aren't disappearing or appearing like they're supposed to. Occasionally you'll have, like when you're labeling things, the labels won't appear, just type in REA and hit enter and they'll appear. It's just that sometimes CAD gets bogged down in all of the processes that it does, that it skips a step here and there, and you just have to redraw it to, or I guess regenerate it for it to be displayed. Okay. But that should take care of step 2. The next thing we're going to do is create a surface. So to do that, I want to use only the topo points. So I'm going to go ahead and reorder my points group. I'm going to put the no display at the top and then move the topo just above the no display and hit OK. Okay, and there are all of our topo points. I didn't have to do that. I could still create a surface with those points. I just wanted to make sure that those are the ones that I'm working with for the surface. So to create a surface, I go over to the prospector pane and I right click on surfaces and I click create surface. And here you want to make sure you get the right type of surface. For points file, we're always using a 10 surface. If you had a DEM file that you've made from LiDAR and you're importing, you can use a grid surface. But we're almost always using the 10 surface type if we're using points. I can change the surface layer. For instance, if I wanted to put the surface on a different layer that I could turn off and on at different times, I could choose it. But for now, I'm going to leave it on CTopo. I can change the name of my surface. And I'm going to call this surface points EG. And basically what that stands for is the points existing ground. If I have a file that has points files and some sort of LiDAR file, I want to make sure that I know that, okay, this is the surface that was built with the points, and then this is the surface that was built with the LiDAR. So for this one, I'm going to call points EG, and I'm also going to change the style of the contours before they're drawn. And you can pick whatever style that you have, and the drawings that are sent to you in the email, they have a specific set that I've named ODNR contours. You can tell I've created this before we got transferred to ODA, so these are still ODNR contours. I'm going to go ahead and set that, and then I can hit OK. Now it didn't do anything in the model space, you see, but if I go over to the prospector pane, I can see if I open up the surfaces, it created this points EG surface. Okay, but you don't see any contours in the model space yet because I haven't physically added the points group into the surface. So to do that, you have to open up the points EG surface over in the prospector pane and open up definition and scroll down to the points group name, select it, and right click and just hit add. Okay, and this dialog box is where I pick the topo points group and hit OK. Now you can see I have contour maps that are displayed on the surface, and it's a little difficult to see, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the no display points group on so that I don't have all this other mess that it's tough to see these contours. So again, to do that, right click points group, file, properties, and move the no display to the top. Hit OK. Okay, there's my contour map. Looks fairly good, other than there are a few issues here and there with jagged lines. I'll go through how to correct them in a second. But just sort of inspect it, make sure it drew it how it should. But you'll see when I have the points turned on, if I turn them back on, that there are some contours produced that basically have no elevation data. So these type of things out here where there are no points, it's assuming that there's straight line contours going from here to the boundary. And this is just a certain process CAD does to quickly draw a boundary. But I cannot use any of this information out here in my design because it's not good. It doesn't represent true ground. Okay, so what I want to do next, and I'm moving right on to step number 4, which is adding a boundary to this survey area, is basically I want to draw a line or delete these contours out here. So there's a couple ways I can do this, and if you're following along in the steps, it goes through a process that says take a polyline and draw a polyline all the way follow the outside of the survey. So follow your outside points. For instance, if I start up here, I'll follow these outside points and I'll snap to every one of them. I'll draw a polyline all the way around the survey, and then following the steps in number 4, I'm going to add it to the boundary. But I'm going to talk about a new process that I just learned this week. Like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm still learning. But this is much simpler than that step. So if you have your step-by-step guide, go ahead and write this down. Select the surface and go up to the Edit Surface button. And again, if you don't have this button, as soon as I pick the command, it'll tell you the command to type down the command line. I want to select Delete Line. Okay, this came up. It's telling me that the surface style I'm using does not have triangles associated with it, or don't have triangles displayed with it. And I've gotten this before, and basically that means I just have to change my surface style. So I'll hit OK, and I want to change my surface style by going up to Surface Properties, and down under Surface Style, at first I selected ODNR Contours, which is what I normally use, but for this process we need triangles, so I'm going to select ODNR Contours with triangles. Again, this is a style that I created that I use. You may have your own style, that's fine. Just make sure you have one with triangles, and hit OK. And you can see that I have those same contours, but I have a lot of these gray lines that represent the tin network of the surface. So those are the ones I want to delete that are basically going from point to point at a far distance. Okay, this line right here is why that this boundary is so large out here and that this elevation data is no good. We want to effectively delete that line. So again, to do that, select the surface, go up to Edit Surface Data, and select the Delete Line function. And again, you'll see down here in the command line that it has the actual command you should type in if you don't have that button. But to do this, I want to select all of these triangles that I want to exclude from the boundary. Civil 3D 2016 has this function, and maybe even 2015 has this function to where when you can draw a box, you can either draw a box to the right and you get this blue box, or you can draw a box to the left and you get this green box. The difference is to select anything with a box in CAD, if you have the blue box, you have to circle the entire object. You can't just have partial of it. It won't do it. But if you have the green box, anything that the green box touches is selected. Okay, so to do that, I want to always move left with the green box and move the box over and make sure that the gray lines are highlighted that I want to be deleted, and then just click. Okay, and then it's got these blue lines highlighted, and then to delete those lines, I just right-click. Okay, there you can see it just drew the boundary closer to where the survey points are actually located. And I'm going to do that at several spots. So I'm going to click out here and draw down to the left over to where I want to stop to make sure I have those lines selected, and then right-click. Okay, so I just took care of that little area. And there's a couple other areas here. You can see that these ones don't do any good out here either, so I want to get rid of them. But if I click out here, I can't drag to the left. It's blue. Okay, so if I select this, it didn't select anything other than that line right there. Okay, let me go back up here and pick the command. So to go left, I have to kind of zoom in to the right side that I want to go left of and select, and then drag it left and right-click, and it just took care of all them lines. So it's starting to look pretty good. Over here I'm going to draw a box select and right click, and I drew a box there. Okay, so now my survey looks pretty good. The boundary now follows the survey accurately. It doesn't give me any data that's not true ground data, okay? And to get out of this command, you can either hit escape or enter or any other way you can get out of it. But now I have a properly drawn boundary around my survey data. Again, this is for a grass waterway, so assuming the shallow gully comes up through the center of this thing, and it should work now for a good grass waterway design in CAD. Okay, but you can see it. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot to look at. A lot of gray lines, a lot of contours. I'm going to get rid of most of that stuff. So I'm going to change my surface style back to ODNR contours without triangles. So I get rid of that mess. So I can either go up to this bar up here, or when I right click in the model space, I can select surface properties. And I'll just change my style back to ODNR contours. Hit OK. And I also want to get rid of these points just because they're a little tough to see with everything else going on. So again, right click the points group and move the no display to the top. Okay, right there you can see I have a fairly good surface that was built from those survey points. And that's care of step number 4. Okay, step number 5 is to correct the surface. And what I mean by correct is you can see here some of these contours have these point jagged lines that don't truly represent how the ground acts. And this happens because CAD goes through a process of creating the 10 network that the computation that uses don't always get the right answer, okay? And you just have to adjust it by either swapping lines or adding break lines. And there's a couple ways you could do this. So I'm going to go ahead and to add break lines, it's a good idea to always add a break line to the centerline shots. So to do that, I'm going to turn on my centerline group that I created, move it to the top. Okay. Okay, so I still have these 2 points there I excluded. I'm going to go ahead and add them back in because otherwise it might look a little funky. Right-click Properties, go to the Exclude tab, and I'm just going to uncheck this. Hit OK. Okay, again, those points didn't come in, so type in the REA command like I said earlier, and they pop right up. Okay, I'm glad it worked that time. Okay, to draw a break line, you just basically have to click the polyline and select all the centerline shots. I'll turn off my ortho. Okay, and I'm not going to click all of these just to save some time, but I'll get a decent amount here to where I can at least show how the break line works. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Normally when you're doing a grass waterway, you want to draw this polyline all the way to the end of the waterway from start to end, all through the centerline shots. And to create a break line, I have to select the surface, and up in the ribbon, I go to Add Data, and I select the break line command. I'm going to call this CL for centerline break line. I'm going to hit OK. Now I have to select the polyline that I just drew and right-click, and it brings up this action event dialog. You can get out of that. But it just created a break line here. It created some problems, but it also fixed some problems. So for instance, right here, it looks like it created a point, but then on different contours throughout here, it looks like it got rid of some points. So it did good. But that's how you add a break line to a surface. You want to make sure you add break lines to center lines, like I said, but also you can do top of bank, left bank, basically anything that has a consistent profile going to it is where you want to create the break lines. So a lot of times, top of bank to the right, top of bank to the left, and center line are usually the 3 that you want to use. Okay, so that's how you create a break line in the surface. But you can see I have some other things going on here that are odd within the surface itself that may throw off my corridor when I'm building it. So for instance, this area right here. So the final step to correct the surface is to swap edges. And you cannot swap edges on this type of surface style. You need to have triangles to do that. So again, I'm going to select the surface and go to Surface Properties and change the style to ODNR contour with triangles. Hit OK. OK. This is where you have to use some experience. You have to start practicing on this at every practice or project that you're on, because this takes some time to learn. It's a fairly simple command. You just select the surface and you go up to, I believe, Edit Surface, scroll down and select Swap Edge. What this command does is it'll allow me to start selecting these gray triangle lines. So for instance, if I select this line right here, it'll change the 2 points that it connects to. Instead of connecting to this point here and this point down here, it'll change the diagonal of it and connect to the other 2 points. So if I select this line, it just changed the diagonal, and it slightly changed the contour line. Now it didn't change it much here because this is a fairly well represented square that, based on the elevation data, it's not going to change the contour lines too much. However, you get into some issues up here where you get a lot of these gray triangle lines that are very close together, and then you start producing some of these weird jagged lines, and those are what we'd like to get rid of. So there's no real step-by-step method to this. You just start clicking lines, and you can see it just changed that a little bit. And occasionally when you click the line, it'll pop up with this dialog box. And what this is saying is it's already, this line I just selected is already a triangle. It doesn't have an extra point to connect to. Okay. Now that doesn't mean you can't change that one at all. It just means you can't change it right now. So I have to select other lines first, obviously not that one, before I can change that one line I was going after. So again, if there's no real method there, I just changed the line to this. You just want to try to get rid of all these point areas in the contour line. For instance, this one right here I'll try to get rid of. Maybe this one. There we go. It looks like we got a little point there. Okay. Again, there was not really a good method to that. I just kind of doing the best I can playing with it. But you can see now this blue contour line looks fairly smooth curve. And that's how it actually is out as the real ground surface acts. Okay. So again, there's no real method, and sometimes it'll get frustrating because you'll start clicking on lines and that dang dialog box will keep popping up and you can't figure out how to get rid of it. But if you just keep playing with it, eventually you'll get to where it looks, I think the term should be most natural, okay? The smoothest contour line. This surface was pretty good to start with, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time correcting it. I'm just kind of going in and out. This little bend here is not very natural, okay? The other thing I can do is I know this had a gully in it, so if I can kind of follow the centerline shots, I know those are where the contour should point, okay? They shouldn't point outside the gully, so I know that this is fairly accurate for the most part as well. There, I get that box. That just means that I can't change it right now, but if I click this line, then, well, maybe this one. Kind of a funny process, but like I said, it gives you fits. You just have to kind of work through it. Okay, here's another one. Fairly easy to fix. And that one's pretty smooth, that blue line. So I'm not going to go through and do all this one, but that's what you want to do when you're creating a surface. You want to check the entire surface. Make sure you get rid of them odd points, the ones in the contour lines that just don't look very natural, okay? Again, this takes experience. So, okay. And that's basically it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and change the surface style back to the ODNR contour so it's easier to look at when you're done. But that's basically it for building a surface in CAD.
Hey,
There's
Justin.
multiple ways you can do things. You can type your commands. Yes, Justin.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we did have a question.
Yep, go
I'll
ahead.
give you two of them here that came up before you
Mm-hmm.
move on. One was, do you need to draw a feature line for a break line?
The answer is no. You just draw a polyline and then you select the polyline when you go through the dialog process. You don't need to have a feature line for that.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, but the polyline does need to be snapped to points, correct?
Yes. Yes. If you don't snap your polyline to every exact point in order, then that break line is going to go outside of the point, and you're going to have some weird contours. I don't know if I can change this. Maybe I can get it to look weird. Okay, that's another good point because I just changed something that affects the surface, okay, but it didn't update. So over in the prospector pane, I open up the surfaces tab, and you can see they got them yellow little triangles there. That just means they need it updated. And what you can do on a surface is you can right-click and you can select Rebuild Automatic. And basically, anytime you change anything, it'll rebuild it. Okay, so I'm going to hit that, and then you get this dialog box. But you can see it just changed the surface to something that is showing a big hole or hill. I can't tell, but that's what happens when you don't snap to every centerline shot. So I think that was an important thing to mention. So thanks for that.
You can create a break line without attaching, but I believe it has to be a 3D polyline with the elevations attached and add that to a surface. But I'm not sure why you would want to do that. Unless you were designing something as putting something in that were a retaining wall or something like that. Okay, the next question came up is, what is the spacing on your survey shots?
Okay, that's a good question. Most of you that are doing surveys for grass waterways are doing cross-section surveys where every 100 foot or so you'll do 10 or 12 points, whatever it takes to get an accurate representation of that cross-section. This survey was not done that way. This was done with a GPS that was mounted onto a gator, and they had it set to take rover shots. And basically what it does is it takes shots every, I can't remember if it's every 10 feet or every 5 seconds, or it's some sort of interval that it keeps taking shots. And what they do is they get on this gator and they set it in that mode, and they just drive. And they drive lengthwise parallel to the center line of the grass waterway. So if I turn these points back on, I'll kind of explain it to you. I'll turn all the points on. That's a good question. It was fairly simple to do. Once they pull it out of the trailer, get it set up, they start down one edge of the grass waterway, the survey that they want to do, and they just follow this path. So all of these points here on the outside are all one path they travel with the gator. And they drove down and back till they got closer to the center line of the waterway. Then for the actual center line where you have the gullies and it's hard to get a gator into, you take it off the machine, you hook it up to the post, and you take individual shots down through there for the center line shots. Okay, but as soon as you're done, you back on a gator and you can do a traverse survey all the way across there. So that was a good question. This isn't your typical survey for a grass waterway. However, that doesn't mean that you can't do this with a cross-section survey. You just have to make sure when you do it, take enough points outside of the grass waterway to when you get into your design corridors and building surfaces that you have a big enough area to work with. So that was a good question. It's a bit different, but it'll still work either way.
Just to add to that, we're going to have a TDP class in the future on topographic surveying, and we'll talk a little bit more about those techniques and using GPS and total station as a level 2 class. And the nice thing about when we put those together, hopefully that they'll kind of complement future webinars like this. All right, one last question. Can you, but feel free to ask more, can you explain what a proximity break line is?
I cannot. Like I said, I'm not sure. Can you, Justin?
Can I? I'd never use them. I just use everything as the outer, but
Well, I tell you what,
real quick.
um, I'm basically done here, Justin. That was the last step, following the step-by-step guide. If you want to open this up to where people can talk and tell me how to do it, I can show them. But to be honest with you, I've never used them, and I wouldn't know how to explain it either. So I guess it's up to you, however you want to handle it, Justin.
Certainly, and as he said, and none of us are really experts, but I think together, collectively, we have a lot of knowledge. So one of the things we want to do with these webinars is to make it a little open. We have the ability to have people, if you're on the phone, talk. I can unmute you and you can ask questions or make comments to the group or show us some things, not obviously with your screen, but walk McBride through those. So if you have anything to add, just raise your hand and let me know, and we'll go through one by one here, and I can unmute you and try that. Or if you have a microphone on your computer, which some of us do. Another typed in question here, is the DNR surface style available for everyone, and how do you get it? And I'll add, how much does it cost?
Every use costs $1,000 written out to Justin McBride.
There's royalties, I figured.
No, the file that you sent out to everyone, Justin, it includes all them styles. The trouble I assume you're going to have is getting those styles uploaded into your day-to-day operations. It's not terribly difficult. So when you take that file that he sent you, go ahead and save it to your computer, and you can open up CAD. You can open up your template that you typically use, and you can either set this file to your template or the one that you're using. You can just import the styles. To do that, there's a special feature that if you move up to the Manage tab, and again, this is 2016. I don't know how different this is in older versions, but if you go up to the Manage tab, and there should be an import button down here to the right, and I'm going to push on that. It basically says save the drawing, so I'll just save it real quick. Save. Okay, now I'm going to push the button. And what I do now is I find the file that I want to import the styles from. So if I had another file here somewhere, I think I have one on the desktop here, drawing 3, that has styles that I want to import into this drawing, I just navigate to that drawing and I open it. This dialog box will pop up. It'll take a little bit of time to upload some of the stuff. But basically it'll go through here and it'll pre-select all the things that are different from that drawing that you can import into this drawing, or you can uncheck all of them and only import the specific ones. So for instance, you were saying surfaces. I believe it didn't upload the surfaces group here because I already have the same surfaces inside of this. So basically this is saying the only thing that is different between this drawing and the one I'm importing is these 6 items or 7 items, whatever. Say that I have a certain alignment style that I want to import, and it's a certain label style. I'll just import only these styles and I'll hit OK, and it'll copy everything from that drawing into this drawing, and if there's any duplicate styles, it'll delete them. Okay, so it's a fairly simple process. It takes some time. When I hit OK, well, I'll just go ahead and do it, but it'll ask me a question. Again, the duplicate styles may be overwritten. That's fine. It'll just take some time, and then after it's done, it'll pop up with a box. It'll say this many styles and settings was imported, this many was deleted, and so forth. It just takes a little bit of time. Okay, it pops up. 2 styles was imported and 1,400 settings for some reason. But in the case for the surfaces that you're asking for, if you did this with this drawing, it would have imported those surface styles, and you could now get those styles in this drawing. So yes, they are free. They are just something I created. You can create your own. You can share with people. Fairly simple. But if you can't get this, give me a call or send me an email, and we can get you straightened out. So, is there any more
Okay, there was
questions?
also a comment that you can, and I've done this before, drag and drop style. So you have one drawing open at the moment in the upper tab. If you have two drawings open concurrently, you'll have tabs up there in the middle, and you can simply drag one style from one drawing to another in the prospect.
So would I go to the settings tab and do like surface styles and drag this one over here? Or how do you do it, I guess? I've not done this before.
You have to have them. Yeah, I think you gotta. Can you do it to go straight to that other tab?
Can I drag and drop? It's not letting me. I don't know.
This is a Mosley suggestion. Are you on the phone? If you so, you can. I can unmute you, and you can describe that process. He's not on the phone. Okay.
Yeah, like we said, there's all kinds of ways to do different things in CAD. I probably only know 10%, and that's probably overestimating of things you can do in CAD. So if there's different processes and things you're used to doing that are different than this, that's fine. This training was more about to show the people that don't know how to do it, or I guess do another way that are trying to learn this way to do it, and that's fine. So hopefully you all picked up on something, but it'll be a long time before I consider myself a true master in CAD. So.
Okay, well, we're about to 9:30, actually a little bit early, so if there's no more questions, I don't see any on here. I'd like to just kind of, first of all, thank everybody for attending, and hopefully some of you learned something, and if not, you at least kind of got a little feel for what we're trying to do and may be able to give us some input into the future. Oh, one more last question came up here. So I certainly, there's going to be a survey that's going to pop up I think after here, or an email that comes out. If you could give us any feedback into the future. Also, if you're interested in volunteering, if you have something that you're good at that you want to, maybe you're willing to help lead a webinar on a very specific topic, we can set it up that we can have someone else do some of the trainings too. I think, again, like I said, collectively we have a lot of knowledge. We just need to find a way to get it together, and rather than having a meeting sitting there, this seemed to be the easiest way to do it for everyone. The question that came up was, could you explain polyline break line? Then follow up to that was, we do feature line instead of that links the elevations. Is that good, bad, or indifferent on the break lines, I assume? Any thoughts to that?
I don't know why it would be good or bad. If you're linking the elevations, it's going to, I think when it creates a break line, it does that anyhow. Let me just go over here. I shouldn't have that open anyhow. But I think when you create a break line, wrong button. It goes through an operation where it physically reads the data at each point. So instead of having a 3D line or a feature line that already has the elevation, it goes ahead and reads the elevation to which the polyline goes through. That's the reason why if you use the polyline like I did, that you want to make sure you snap to all the points. However, like you said, if you use a feature line, you may not have to because you're already giving it the elevation at the point. So I'm not too familiar, but I'm guessing that's the difference. So if you're using feature line and it's still working keep rolling with it. It's not a problem.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order before we sign off? Just a follow-up comment to that, when we use feature lines, we do not have to swap hardly any edges. And then to drag and drop, you have to open both, at drag and drop the styles, you have to open both drawings and expand the settings to drag. Okay, and I think that's a topic we'll cover it in the future. We'll go into the styles and setting styles and editing styles. In a future webinar, we'll talk about cross sections, profiles. We'll go through some of the general setup of just a drawing, and try and cover some of those topics in the future.
Just real quick, where is this video going to be posted? Do we know that yet?
I don't have the website link set up. Hopefully we'll have a YouTube channel set up here in the very near future and linked it from the website. If that takes too long, I'll put it on the PDF on the FTP site and email everyone a link to that. I'll probably have to do that anyways because it'll probably be quite a while before we have that YouTube channel set up.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
If that's everything, we'll sign off here. Again, thanks to everybody for attending, and hopefully if it went well and there's a good response, we'll put another one of these together maybe in the next couple months and work our way through all the different things we need to do in CAD and possibly even add ArcGIS or other software topics that are just a little easier to do in a webinar instead of a classroom here into the future. So again, that's why feedback would be good, so we can kind of learn a little bit about how to change this up to make it useful to everyone. Thanks. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Have a good Friday, good weekend, and we will hopefully be talking with all of you sometime soon.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.